Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Scarlets Fever with me, Lee G. Joining me as always, Big M and Catboy, as he is now known. How are you, Hugh? How are we, gents?
Very
Evening.
well, thank you. Excited for this one?
Absolutely. I'm right to be excited. A break from the norm this week. A special guest joining us for a Q&A session is Scarlets General Manager of Rugby, Jon Daniels. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you on here with a stable signal. Those of you that listen to our last couple of interviews will know how good it is to have a stable signal. So we're not going to beat around the bush or anything. Everyone kind of knows who everyone is. So we're just going to crack on with questions because there's a lot to get through. So first of all, John, just it's a bit of a different week for the squad this week with no game at the end. So what's training been like for the boys this week?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it's been a bit of a bizarre season. So it was a very long off season, but once we got going in South Africa, it's been very intense, So now we've got a few weeks off. Last week was the first opportunity people have had to have a bit of a break, which I think is important. But today, everybody's back in. Obviously, the reviews on Edinburgh, they've been done, but people are now focusing on our upcoming league fixtures. Obviously, we've got the extra Chiefs friendly in between, which has fallen quite nicely for us, actually. And obviously, our international players are away, so it's a bit of a smaller group, but everybody's refreshed and energized and come back in today, committed to doing whatever it takes to start getting the results we all want.
Cool. And we'd like to know a little bit more about yourself, John, if that's okay. So, what's your connection to rugby? What's your background, and how did you get involved in the Scarlets?
Well, my first connection with the Scarlets is as a fan, like most of us. So, my grandfather, my Dickie, was a South Stand patron in Stradey Park. So I think I must have been 6 or 7 when he first sneaked me over the turnstile in Stradey Park to go and sit with him. And, apart from family things, the 3 things I can remember talking to him most about was Albert Jenkins, Phil Bennett, who we thought the world of, and Googlies. So, yeah, he loved his cricket as well. But, from that age, going down to Stradey, I remember watching Phil, too young to know really what was going on, but I remember watching us play Northampton and, giving them a right hammering. And there was one player on the field just doing things that was different to everybody else, and that was Benny. Played schoolboys, Llanelli under-11s. Had on one of the under-11 sessions, I was lucky enough that Carwyn James came out and coached one night. So in his yellow oilskin. So that was a real special night. But fast forward, Stradey School, went off to King Coyd to do my degree in sport and human movement studies, and ended up lecturing sports science in CCTA as it was. Now that was back in 1999. We'd started developing a partnership with Llanelli Rugby Club as it was, because Gareth Jenkins recognised that, whilst the game had gone professional, actually there wasn't much professional about it yet other than paying players, and he recognised that you needed a development pathway. So at the time, myself and Sean Hawley were working within the rugby department in CCTA, and I was appointed first academy director, and Sean went off to Hartbury to set up what is a very successful program up there as well. So yeah, over the next few years, that was August 2000, we launched the academy, and by 2003 we'd become a region. So I then became regional manager. So we rolled out the academy concept then to through a number of schools and colleges across the region. And if you remember, we had North Wales at the time as well. but also I sat on a steering group which represented the 4 regions in rolling out the academy to all the regional academies. And initially when I was first appointed the academy director, it was a joint appointment between RFC and the college. But by 2003-04, with regionalisation, that's when I came across fully to the Scarlets, and yeah, been here ever since. Got a life sentence like the rest of us. You can't get, once it's in you can't get out, can you?
Yeah, so you've obviously seen the highs and the lows. So, you know, what's sort of your best times in the Scarlets since you've been working here? And I suppose, you know, it's been a bit of a tougher time lately. You know, do you ever consider, you know, maybe you have had enough of this at this point?
Well, first of all, there's always highs and lows, but one thing you can't get away from is that, you know, it's a privilege to work for such a wonderful institution. And yeah, there are tough times, but they're challenges that for us to overcome. There've been some tough times, you know, the whole period in Straddy Park with the inquiries and were we moving, weren't we? That whole period, and then actually coming up here to the new stadium, to Parc y Scarlets, when it was first finished, that was, wow, that was special. And I just think special for the whole community, because for years, we'd built a reputation and represented the aspirations of the community by beating teams, international teams, and going and winning cups and being successful. But now we actually had a world-class facility as well to back that up. So that was a special moment. But if I'm honest, the couple of years that followed that were difficult, because the move up to Straddy was tough emotionally on a lot of people, but also tough financially. And I would say, you know, we were in a situation then where we had to reduce costs and we had to invest in a new generation. And you know, it probably took us from that point to when we actually won the league in 2017. It was probably 5-6 years, and the first 3 or 4 of those were extremely painful. But yeah, without doubt, that moment when we won the league in 2017, and just that sort of end of the season, the run we had, it just felt as if nobody was going to beat us. Now, we hadn't started the season that way, but by the time we got to the end of it, it was an amazing feeling. You know, winning the final was special, but also the week before, you know, the first team to win an away semi-final and beating Leinster in the RDS with 14 men, you know, it was a great couple of weeks. So yeah, I'd have to say that's you know, a high point. But I also have to say that one of the things that is you know, I really loved about the work in here has been that connection with the community. And I still now on a daily basis get a buzz out of what's going on in the foundation, and, you know, the number of kids that we're able to affect positively. And that was the thing about winning the cup, was, you know, yeah, we'd won the cup, but we'd done it with largely homegrown talent. And, you know, so we set about, we came up with an idea to run a competition online for classes to nominate their class to have a visit from the cup. And the intention was that we'd take it to one, we'd have a competition. Well, we could never do that. So we ended up taking it to, I think it was around 120 different classrooms, so little kids, so their photos with the cup. And I think that's what we're about, really. So we do it, you know, we do this to win. Of course we want to win, but the reason we want to win is not because there's a billionaire owner that wants to feed an ego. It's because we represent, you know, aspirations and being world-class in Wales. And to be honest, I don't think there's enough organisations like that in West Wales for our young people to, and I don't just mean rugby players. I mean, if you want to be world-class scientist or a mathematician or an athlete or a brain surgeon, whatever it is, you know, you can do that. So that those moments are special as well, working for the club.
So before we get on to some of the more kind of nitty gritty of the club and what have you, Jon, can you just kind of give us an idea of your role and what you do? And obviously we've had a load of questions about all sorts of strange things. So what kind of stuff are you involved in? What kind of stuff do you have an influence in? And what kind of stuff nothing to do with you? So there's no point asking you that question.
Well, you know, I've been a director of the club since 2014, 15 now, I think. So in that sense, everything matters to me. Everything is relevant. But in terms of what I'm responsible for, I'm responsible for all the rugby elements within the club. So that's from you know, the community element right through to the first team. And then Phil Morgan, my counterpart, as Chief Operating Officer. Phil is responsible for all the non-rugby elements. So within that, my role, you know, it's people, programs, budget. We're about, I think, full-time head count now, we're about 95. And that doesn't include, you know, interns and the like. So I'm ultimately responsible for all of it, but clearly within performance sport, the head coach has a specific accountability because, you know, he's there to deliver the performance from the team. And as a result, and rightly so, I think, you know, he has the autonomy that he needs to be able to do that. So whilst, you know, I'd be, I feel like, the head of rugby when it comes to selection or anything like that. And this isn't just Dwayne. Every head coach that I've ever worked with would be the same. It's got to be their call because, you know, they're accountable for it. And I don't think you'd get a coach to come to join any club where he didn't have the autonomy to be, you know, responsible for his own success. So that's really how we roll.
Okay, so like Lee has just touched on, we've had quite a lot of questions, and probably the majority of them pertain to us retaining players and signing players. Like, there's a lot of fans that are still really angry that, you know, Jack Morgan and Shawnee Calamaphone have left. So what sort of challenges are there currently when it comes to retaining and even attracting new players to the club?
Well, first of all, I think, well, you've given two examples there, and they're two very different examples, but we too are just as upset and disappointed to have lost quality people and quality players. And to be honest with you, the challenges have changed a lot in the last few years. You know, financially, you know, the cost pressures in Wales are well documented. If I just look across the 4 regions, you know, squad costs next year will be circa 10 million less than they were 2019. On top of that, you know, you have new operating procedures in Wales. So, you know, we have to have 80% Welsh qualified. We've always had a limit on how many non-Welsh you can bring in. But now you have to have 40% of your squad has to be homegrown, so come through your pathway. And then there's player of national interest obligation. So the Welsh Rugby Union will name players of national interest, and we all have to accommodate a certain number of each. So, you know, all that's new in the last few years, as well as the reduction, the overall reduction, the 10 million. That I referred to earlier. You know, what's happened as well is the funding is now equalised across the 4 regions. So proportionately, you know, because we were one of the highest funded because of all the international players we had, proportionately we've shouldered, you know, a big chunk of that burden. So, you know, this season's squad, for example, will be in the order of £3 million less cost than it was back then. So in terms of challenges, That's very material. And there are times where you have to make decisions to let good people and good players go, and you wish you didn't have to. But you have to do that to make sure that we're sustainable and we're still here for future generations of young people in West Wales to look up to and hopefully be inspired to become something world class in their lives. Welsh rugby is, I'll be honest, and Welsh rugby as a brand is not an easy one at the moment to recruit into. People are aware, they read snippets of the difficulties and the challenges, so that makes it slightly harder. But there are players that we've had to release and we wouldn't have wanted to. We've let a lot of caps go through the door, a lot of experienced players. But likewise, we said about a couple of years back, reprofiling and rebuilding the squad, not in the way where we rip everything up at once, but we have been gradually moving towards some of those great players moving on, and then back in players. You see Sam Costello, Joe Roberts, Tom Rogers, Kemsley Mathias. These boys have all got their first caps in the last couple of years as Scarlets, and I think there's a couple more we think are going to come in behind. We think Eddie James, Archie Hughes are very exciting for the future, and then there's more talent in our under 18s to fill through as well. We still need to retain experienced quality players, but the likes of Ryan Elias, Josh McLeod and these boys, they were quality players, but with senior players ahead of them, over time, they are now becoming the leaders of this group. And there's a lot of work going in on that, both from our point of view, working with them, but from their point of view as well. They're relishing it. They're thriving in it. So yeah, recruitment, there's a limited pot. We do have new obligations that we have to fulfill in putting the squad together. And chances are, it's going to be challenging for another season or two, because ultimately the finances of the game, we can't hide from the economics. I think rugby globally has tried to hide from the economics for too long, and I think it's caught up with us. COVID has brought it home, and who would have thought that 3 long-established clubs in England could no longer exist. So I think it's been a sobering time for global rugby. Certainly within Wales, there's been a lot done in the last 18 months, 2 years to actually get to a point where we're living within our means. But then we have to put just as much effort, and a lot of work is going on, and the key will be, this isn't where we want to be. Where we want to be now is we need to grow that income, grow that funding, so that we can continue to invest and strengthen our squads. Because young players ultimately will grow and become as valuable as the senior players that have left. And what we need to ensure is that we're in a position to retain them when that happens.
So obviously not easy time for any clubs who haven't got, the multi-millionaire backings like over in France at the minute. So can you give us a sneak peek of who we've retained or anyone that might be coming in? Or can you tell us when we can expect to start hearing things? Because obviously Cardiff have announced quite a few re-signings. Are we in the process of making those announcements?
We are in the planning stage of making those announcements. To be honest, if I was Cardiff, I'd probably be doing the same, because they've got some good news around. They want to feed off the new investors, and they got good intake into the Welsh squad, so good for them. We've made some significant retentions, and we've made some new signings as well, and I would expect those to start being announced in the next few weeks.
Oh, fantastic. So when it comes to managing the squad, when as a leadership group in the Scarlets, everyone sits down, what does that process look like? Does Dwayne come to you with a list of, here's my keeps, here's my buys, here's what I want, Jon, can you sort this out for me? Is it a collaborative, you and Dwayne and maybe a couple of others all sit down as a group and it's a sharing of opinions? And just sort of, when does that process start and how long does it take before you start putting pen to paper?
Yeah, good question. I'll talk in terms of the process first, and then I'll talk about the timeline. So the retention and recruitment process starts with the game model. So Dwayne will devise the game model. And by that, I mean, what style are we going to play? And what types of rugby players and athletes do we need to be able to deliver that style of play? Then we look at what we've got. If they're in contract, great. If they're not in contract, but we need to retain them, then you'll often start with your retentions, because if you can keep the ones you want, great. If you can't, you need to know early, because you need to go to market to replace them. So retention often happens early in the piece. Obviously, part of that as well is we will feed through the players that are coming through the succession plan and into the first team, and make sure there's a place for them, because what you don't want to do is recruit into positions and block that talent from coming through. Internally, this process will be Dwayne, obviously, from the game model point of view, will lead on that with his coaches. I'll oversee the process, but then once we identify the needs, what sorts of players we want in what positions, then that's largely where James Davis, where Cubby does the heavy lifting on that. So Cubby's the one with the square eyes watching videos of players constantly to try and find what we want. In terms of our internal decision making, Dwayne, from a budgetary point of view, I have the financial responsibility, but from a player point of view, again, Dwayne and every coach that has gone before him will have the final say on which player they can have. That doesn't mean they always have the players they want, because obviously we can't afford them, but within the confines of the finances of the overall department, which player we have will always be the head coach's call. Outside of that, we have a squad planning process, which we have to go through now with the Welsh Rugby Union and Pro Rugby Board. So that will start with, as I said earlier, the player national interest list. That usually on a normal year will start in August. But because of the World Cup, it doesn't start till later, because the cycle of a World Cup year, you get to November and then you start with a new group. So it's slightly different one year in four. But normally we would start having our work conversations and planning for the following year. So, for example, August 2024, we will start the process for June 2025 onwards. So, what we want for next year, we identified slightly later because of the World Cup and so on, but we've been working on what we need in earnest and having meaningful conversations with players since October, November.
Okay,
that's fairly normal. And then what tends to happen is you try and get your key retention done by the new year, and then as time goes by, your squad places start to crystallize, and then the squad comes together.
So if that's from the player point of view, and obviously Dwayne has been joined this summer by some new coaches as well, and it's a lot of coaches that he's worked with before. So would it be fair to say that Dwayne is empowered in that sense as well, to bring in the coaches, the assistant coaches that he wants, and that's his call as well?
Yeah, almost entirely. the head coach, I think, should have the ability to put his team together. However, not in a, you see in football, don't you, where the managers change and the whole back room is shipped out with them. Not to that extent. I always think, especially if you're bringing a new head coach in, it's good that they have the opportunity or the ability to bring one assistant with them. But again, it's largely the coach's decision, and it would only be where the club would step in is if we had a major issue with somebody on, could be principal grounds or anything. But no, the head coach would usually expect to put his team together.
Okay, and there's a lot of rumours circulating at the moment about what the coaching ticket might look like next year. Is there, are you able to give us any sneak previews on that, or when might we expect to find out?
What are the rumours then? You tell me.
Rumours of extensions for certain individuals.
I'm not going to comment on extensions for Dwayne, because I know that's what they're leading towards. What I will say with Dwayne is that our engagement with Dwayne from the start has always been long-term. We brought Dwayne in and we spent a lot of time discussing this project, and it is a project. So our commitment between Dwayne and ourselves has been long-term anyway. I'm not going to say any more than that on it, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
And that's good to hear that we're thinking long term, in all honesty. So, two things I just want to ask: what do we mean by player of national interest? Is that a player in the national squad, or is that potentially someone like Tane that's abroad and then brought in or something like that? Is that what we mean by a player of national interest, or?
Well, obviously, I don't want to go into detail about that, because that's a fairly sensitive process. But it's basically what it says on the tin. So it's relevant for us all to ensure that Welsh rugby is as strong as it can be. Honestly, I think over the years, there have definitely been times where the national game has been heavily prioritized ahead of the regional game. And I believe that balance has been wrong at times. And I believe that more focus, more prioritization should be put into the regional clubs. But we do all of us have a vested interest in making sure that Wales continues to be competitive and as successful as possible. So I'm not suggesting it's at the expense of the international game, but I do think at times the balance has been the wrong way. So, this year, for example, the critical thing at the end of any World Cup cycle is obviously every international team wants to be successful every time they play. But the key is how do we ensure we're successful in the 2027 World Cup? And for that to happen, who are the players that it is vital that we retain in Wales and are going to be the backbone of the group that would come forward and be that team in 2027? So once the Welsh Rugby Union devise that list, then we all as 4 regions have, we have an obligation then to make offers to accommodate those players where we can. And until we do, there's a sign-off process for that. And if we can't show, all clubs, if we can't show how we are going to service the players of national interest, then, there is the ability for it to make it difficult for us to get any other contracts signed off. So it's a long-term protection for the national team and the national game. which ultimately is in our interests, but the balance is always protecting the national interest whilst also allowing us the autonomy to put our squads together for us to be successful and competitive as well. Because ultimately, you know, I do strongly believe that if we have a strong regional club game, that will service the national team better anyway. They'll have a better chance of being competitive in 2027 if our players are competitive, if they're playing in knockout games and playing in big games. If they're not, it's going to be hard for Wales to be as competitive as they could be.
That's good to know. So one of the questions we had was about where are we currently shopping? So, you know, there's certain parts of the world where I doubt we'd be shopping at the minute, you know, France and what have you, but are we looking at different leagues, different cups? Is there, you know, obviously the world is changing and new nations coming up and that sort of thing. Are we looking at anywhere different or out of the norm sort of a thing for new players?
Well, we're looking in the traditional places, but we're also looking anywhere that we can find. And especially sometimes you have to be a bit more creative when you don't have the resources. And, you know, the sorts of players that we would all love to be able to sign, they would literally take 20% of next year's salary cap. So, you know, we are not in the market for those types of players, but we are in the market for quality players. So we are still looking into Super Rugby. We are looking into England. We look into France, but France and Japan are clearly the two most competitive markets at the moment. You know, in France, you now have two fully professional leagues. 41% of the playing population, professional playing population of the world are playing in France. And then in Japan, you know, you're talking there, players there are getting figures which are higher than our highest earners, and they play for 4 months of the year. And if you're New Zealander, it's a lot easier. You know, you've got an overnight flight back from Tokyo to New Zealand to see your family. If you're up here, you're a day away. So, you know, all those things do impact it. But in terms of where we're shopping, if you like, we're still looking in the Welsh Premiership. We're looking in the English Premiership, English Championship. We're looking in Japan, and we're looking in Super Rugby and South Africa. And, you know, South Africa is an interesting market because obviously they're competitors of ours now. And it used to be that a lot of the players were wanted to leave South Africa, but, you know, you can see a lot of them are going back now. So, yeah, we're looking into Super Rugby and into the URC franchises in South Africa and into Currie Cup.
Okay, so quite obviously you've got a better knowledge of where the squad is going into next season than anyone else here. So what is a realistic vision for the Scarlets over the coming seasons, and what sort of things have we put in place to achieve those?
Well, first of all, our vision is clearly to continue the project that we've undertaken. Now, I do want to make a point here, because the risk is when I keep referring to the long-term project, that doesn't mean that we're letting ourselves off the hook for current performances, right? And there's no getting away from it. Recent results have not been what we would want, and we're all extremely disappointed with the results. There have been elements of, and there have actually been performances where we should have won, but found a way to lose. But, you know, looking at the longer term is not getting us off the hook for current performances. So I just wanted to make that point. But taking this group and growing this group in the next couple of years is our vision, is our priority. We are reconnecting back to our local roots. There's been a lot of work going on in the last 2 years on cultural stuff, and even working with, you know, Trostre here on some of the historical links and the steel and so on. So we are reconnecting with our history and our heritage and what the club means to the community. The challenge for us is going to be when this generation comes through and become more valuable, we have to retain them. And then the next generation, when they come through, you know, we have to manage that process correctly. But ultimately, you can only buck the trend for so long. It does come down to a game of resources, and you know, we are going to have to grow funding and revenue across the game in Wales to be able to grow in future. And if we can't do that, then the pain that we've gone through and are going through now is going to be for nothing really. That's why we're here. We're not here to just take part. We're here genuinely. We come in every day wanting to get better, but we're here looking at how we can be better, and be not just competitive, but also we want to be in those playoff games. And once we get to those playoff games, we think we can win. And you know, even last year, I genuinely believe we were one referee's decision away from making our first European final, and that I think is where we want to be, and then we want to kick on from there.
So that's us looking forward to the future. If we go back for a minute, we go 2016 to 2018, some really successful times. In between then and now, obviously COVID has played a part with everyone, but things haven't quite gone right. You know, what sort of lessons have we learned over these last few years? Like, inevitably, everyone makes mistakes. We know that, but what sort of things? How do I say this? Are we looking to make sure we don't repeat the same processes that didn't lead us to success?
Well, the short answer is yes, but I think it's worth us just reminding ourselves what's happened since then as well. So, 2018-19, we lose 3 of our championship winning coaching team to Wales. We bring Brad Moore in July, and by December, Brad is saying that he wants to go back and coach the All Blacks. That's the same Christmas that reports started coming out of China about COVID. So go into 2020, everything stops. We're building a hospital at Parker Scarlets, not a rugby team. We do end up back playing, but clearly the financial impact of COVID is a big bearing. Every person in the organization has to take a 25% pay cut for 15 months just to survive. We all come out the other end, and 3 English clubs have gone bust, and we have to rewrite the whole contracting model just for the game in Wales to survive. So those aren't excuses; those are facts. And you can say that everybody's been faced with the same challenges, and yeah, you are right. In Wales, at least, we've all been faced with those same challenges. Some of the things that we've learned. So during COVID, in Wales at least, academies were stopped. Academies couldn't function. So in England, the academies were allowed to continue because they were contracted junior professionals. Well, they were in Wales as well. The agreement with the Welsh government was that they couldn't. So, in hindsight, I would have pushed to fight that, because I think there's a generation of young players that are probably 18 months to 24 months behind on their development because of the COVID break and the fact that they could, they weren't even allowed to come into Parc Scarlets to use the gym. So, it has had an impact on players coming through. It's delayed that process slightly. We also carried, and I've heard and read people quoting, that we had a squad of 60 and so on. Well, the way we could, well, two things. One, the way we could get some of those academy players, the senior academy players, into some rugby was to bring them into the first team environment. So they got exposed. Now that meant we had big numbers here, which gave us challenges in how we manage the squad. But also we needed numbers because at any given moment, you could have a big chunk of your team wiped out if somebody tested positive for COVID. So, yeah, the learnings from the time, and the key for us in terms of the learnings is being honest about what we didn't get right. And, the day anybody in a performance environment tells you that there's not much they could have done any better or they can't get any better, then they stop being performance animals, to be honest with you. So yes, the stuff that we certainly can get better at, and we've learned some lessons. But at the same time, you have to just recognize, not for the sake of your ego or because you want to feel any better, recognize the things that have worked just so you can keep doing them, because otherwise you end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater and everything gets ripped up. So you have to be objective in reviewing what you have done and what you could have done better. So yeah, there's no question that it was a tough time, but there's no question as well it was a steep learning curve for everybody, because nobody had a manual for how to deal with that. I'll never forget that time when the group was stuck down in South Africa when the Omicron variant broke, and it was a really difficult time for everybody involved, and you couldn't go to a process document or a manual to tell you how to deal with that. So we reflect on what we can do better every day. The things that we learned at that time around squad management, for example, it does feed into what we're doing now. So we have reduced our squad size. But in reducing it, we also have expanded our senior academy provision, and we've invested there. And we're also extending our relationship and our partnership with the Drovers, Llandovery and Carmarthen Quins into a memorandum of understanding to ensure that those environments, that we are working with those environments to get them to as closely reflect what the players are doing in a pro environment, so that we can accommodate players right through the system, rather than having to, if you like, stockpile large amounts of players within our group. So yeah, there's learnings, and I won't sit here and tell you that we haven't got things wrong. We have. But what I will say is we review everything we do, and when we do get it wrong, we work twice as hard to make sure we don't get it wrong again.
So we've touched on the academy a fair bit there, so that's something we want to talk about next. So obviously the under-18s are going really well at the moment, which everybody's enjoying at the moment. How do you feel that sort of side of things are going at the moment, and what's in place to make sure that these players who are performing so well, they stick with the Scarlets, and that we don't lose perhaps as many as we may have done in the past?
Well, first of all, there's been quite a big change in our development pathway this year. Pre-COVID, the process was we had to submit a rugby business plan to PRB for approval. And the year before COVID, in our plan, we had said that we were going to develop 5 player development centres across the region, starting at under 15. And the geographic spread, we wanted to cover the whole region so that we could resource coaching and strength and conditioning expertise locally to these players, rather than them having to come to Parc Scarlets to access it. But also it meant that we could keep the pathway broader for longer. So instead of taking 5 dual shield teams at under 15 as it was then in Llanelli, Carmarthen, Mynydd Mawr, Dynefol, Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion, then you funnel them into a Scarlets East and West under 16s, and then a Scarlets under 16s. That rate of funneling was vast. Now we still have those environments, but what we have now is those 5 centres. They continue to run in those geographical areas right through, so they go 15, 16, 17. So we've now gone from, like previously, after the under 16 years, so 17 and 18, we would just have had Scarlets under 18s, but now we still have 5 centres servicing players at those age groups. In terms of what do we do, so what we've historically done when they come out of the age grade, some players are contracted, academy contract, but that's, you know, there are a small number of contracts that we've given out. And to be honest, I don't think we've handled the other players emotionally as well as we could have. Because if you tell one person they're getting a contract at 16 or 17 or 18, for us, it doesn't mean that the other, 10 players or so with potential in that group are not going to make it. But I think at times that was the impression we gave. So, from a mindset and a language point of view, what we have worked towards this year is our language is the Scarlets Academy is that whole program, because clearly players can develop at different times and at different rates, and actually players' needs are different. So somebody might be ready to be a full-time rugby player at the age of 18, but some others might not be ready till they're 20, 21, and that might be because of position or circumstance or education or whatever that might be. What we're doing now is trying to accommodate as many of those players in our system as we can. The challenge with that is, a one-size-fits-all approach is a lot easier to resource than it is trying to resource, people's individual needs. But that's what we've got. So we've got a university connection through Swansea University. One of our academy coaches in that Bucks team. Now we have close links there. We have the Llandovery and Carmarthen connection as well. So our under 18s players, when they come out at the top end of that stage, they will all be allocated to one of those partners. And these aren't just contracted players now. Every player that comes through to that point in the system, we will allocate them to those teams. It's still up to the player if they want to go that route or accept that. But that's what we will do. So hopefully we're accommodating more players. And by the way, that includes players that move away to study. So, in the under 18s at the moment, you've got some players in there that are studying in Hartbury, or we've got one in City of Oxford College. And likewise, we have strong partnerships within the Colleges and Schools League. So, historically, College Cigar have been strong. Llandovery College, invested resource to improve their programme recently. They won the Colleges League this year. Pembrokeshire College have worked hard, and now Amman Valley are now in the Colleges League as well. But even then, there are players who want to stay in their schools that we will service, or we will help facilitate. They can stay in their school but play for one of those college teams, or they might just play for their club. Now that puts a lot of a big burden on us to resolve those those issues. But, that's our aim and that's our objective. And if we get that right, then more of our young talent will have a rugby development program, which hopefully is relevant to not just their ability, but their particular circumstances. And therefore, we would hope that more of them would come through into the first team and delivering the success that we all want.
So everything that you've just said has just covered about 90% of my next question. So, you've done pretty well for me for there. But carrying on with these late developers, those players that don't go to one of your placements, essentially, let's say if we use Josh Adams as an example, obviously no fault to anyone, but obviously he went to Worcester and he developed. How do we keep track of those players that go a step further away? So I know what's his name, Josh Hathaway has left our system quite recently, and he's coming on really well. So do we still track him through these early years?
Yeah. So I'll just touch on the examples you use because they're different.
Yeah.
So Josh was in our system, and when he got to that stage where he got to the under 18s, we didn't contract him, but the advice to Josh was you need to do a bit more, go and play with Llanelli RFC and develop there, and that's where Josh went. So Josh left from there. With Josh Hathaway, because it's not Josh Adams, Josh Hathaway, Josh was in our academy, but for personal reasons asked to be released. Now, we felt at that time that it was important for us as a club to do the right thing by the boy. And so we agreed to that. And I'd still love to see Josh Hathaway running around as a Scarlet one day in the future. He may not. But in terms of those players that, the late developers, then, Gareth Jenkins still has a talent ID role with us. And also James Davis, obviously in his recruitment role. They're actively, on a weekly basis, monitoring, tracking, and watching these players. So, even, excuse me, even in this current group, you can see Ben Williams from Aberavon, Iwan Shenton from Cardiff Met, Charlie Titcombe and Teddy Leatherbarrow from Loughborough University. So, none of those boys had any contact with our pathway before they joined us. So we are out there and actively looking for those late developer players, because honestly, no system is infallible, and there will be talent out there that somebody has missed. And if we can find them, that's where you have your next Liam Williams story or Tyg Burns story, So we are actively out looking for that type of player. And during the season, we still now have players. So we've got a player training with us at the moment from RGC. We've had players in from Llandovery and Carmarthen who come in and, they're going well with their clubs. We have relationships with their clubs. Scott Snedden and Cubby, they meet on a regular basis to review performance, but also obviously we put players in with Carmarthen and Llandovery during the year, and also meet on a squad planning basis as well. So if they know what players we've got and who might be playing with them next year, it helps them with their squad planning. So all that is in place, and hopefully we can cover off and make sure that we capture as many of those hidden gems as we can.
Yeah, so there's no doubt that the academy has had quite a lot of success in the past, especially with developing backs. But obviously something that I think everyone in West Wales will know, that we don't exactly specialise in producing tight five forwards, specifically locks. So what sort of things are we doing to identify and develop players in those positions? I know you've already touched a little bit on it.
Yeah, and listen, it is a generalisation, but generalisations are usually true as well to some extent. we have some great rugby players in West Wales that are between back row and second row because of stature and athletic ability, but they're great rugby players. And they're probably two things you can do little about. You know, if somebody could be a great second row, but he's 6'3", that's always going to be a problem. So that said, you know, we do work hard then when there are players with the stature, you know, we do commit then to trying to make sure that they do come through. But, you know, ultimately you can't put in what God left out, and we will try and identify all that potential size that we in the front five, and bring them into the system, but then we look to supplement it from outside. I do think the last couple of years we deliberately extended our front row reach, props in particular. So, you know, we were bringing big props into our extended system, and, you know, Phil John was working closely with them, and Iros Evans specifically. We were going on their size then, rather than at times what at that time they were delivering as rugby players. And I do think there's some good props in our system coming through now. There are also a couple of second rows that are got potential as well, but even now, you know, they're exiles, Welsh qualified exiles that we brought in rather than you know, local genetic talent that we've been able to identify.
So take you back a couple of years to when Brad Moore left and went home to New Zealand, and there was talk at the time of a stronger connection between Scarlets and New Zealand because of some of the stuff that he could bring. And I know a couple of boys went out. I think Eddie James was one of them that really benefited from it. Is that going to be, you know, resurrected? Is there any chance of that kind of thing happening as part of the future?
Yeah, it's ongoing. So, you know, there have been some things that we haven't been able to pull off with them. But there have also been, you know, times where the relationship has been helpful. It actually played a part in getting Tame Plumtree across. We've obviously met virtually, but we've had as well, you know, their head of high performance and their general manager of professional rugby have been here. So, you know, we've had sessions on, we talked then about high performance reviews and how you measure high performance and that balance between the you know, qualitative and quantitative, and how you get the right approach to it. So the relationship is ongoing. So yes, definitely part of what we want to do going forward.
Cool. So changing subject slightly here. So something that we've really taken on as a podcast as part of our family, if you like, is the Brython Thunder team that started this season. So obviously they play some games at the park. So do you at the Scarlets see them as part of the family, and how involved are you with them?
We do, and I hope they feel part of our family. But you know, they are the team in the West, so you know, they're not a Scarlets team, but we've committed for a couple of years now to developing and promoting women's and girls rugby. So we've been since 2 years ago, perhaps, we started the performance taster session so that girls could come and see what it was like to be a professional rugby player, actually, and learn about, you know, how to lift in the gym and the skills element of it. And a lot of those girls have stayed in the program, and they're through now and playing. They're actually playing for Wales now. So we are definitely committed here. We want, in the Scarlets region, to be the first, or in the first batch of professional teams in Wales. So Brython Thunder is not our team, but as soon as the opportunity became available, we've given our facilities over to Brython Thunder, and they have equal access to everything here at Parc y Scarlets that the boys age grade teams, the boys academy teams, and the first team get. And we have again, Rodri from our academy is coaching in the Brython Thunder team as well. So we certainly see them as part of our family, although I'm sure some of our Ospreys friends will have something to say about it.
They play in red last time I checked.
So let's move away from the on-field stuff now. As you said at the beginning, then you are a director of the club as well. Sorry. So what sort of plans are there off the pitch when it comes to things like the club shop, supporter engagement, match shapings? Because obviously there's been a few meetings with 360, and we've all had the minutes as such from those meetings. So can you tell us a bit about what the plans are going forward?
If you've had the minutes, you know all the answers there.
He's asking on behalf of our listeners, John.
So, no, listen, I'm not going to go into detail on that area, because likewise, if Phil Morgan started making commitments and promises on rugby, then I'd be knocking on his door. But you know what I will say is it's a small committed team, and they, like me and like us, none of us claim to get everything right all the time. But one thing I am 100% confident in is that, you know, we all come in every morning wanting to be better, wanting to do the best that we can. And when we're not, whether that's a performance on the field or if it's a performance, you know, in the event or in hospitality, and it hasn't gone as well as we would wanted, we hurt. We hurt as much as anybody. We hurt first of all as fans, because most of us are, but then we hurt because it's our professionalism and our professional integrity that is in question. But honestly, it's in terms of commitment and wanting to improve, you couldn't ask for more. Now, in terms of the detail, the conversations I know that have taken place are things around the shop and certain experiences. The one I think I would say is consistent from my point of view and within Phil's team, I think we could have done a better job recently of communicating. Now, sometimes, and this isn't excusing it, but sometimes that's because when you get in the trenches, you just put your head down and your backside up and you just plow on. And but as I said, that doesn't excuse, I would say myself, and from a rugby point of view, that we haven't done a great job of communicating with you lot in recent months, and I suspect Phil, to some extent, would agree with me.
Okay, great. So last of the serious questions then. So when it comes to picturing what's coming up for the Scarlets, so when you think about all the things that you've got planned over the next couple of years, what are you excited about? What makes you think I can't wait for that to happen?
Well, this group, where we can take this next generation. But I think it is worth as well reminding ourselves, because we all reflect, we all get down on ourselves about things when things aren't going perfectly well, and perhaps you hear of others and you think, oh, they seem to be doing better. You have to remind yourself what you've got sometimes. And I often stand watching our games with the former chairman, Hugh Evans. And, it's stark for me when you hear of other clubs talking about, plans to build a new stadium or wanting to move. And actually, we've got everything that other clubs want here. We've got a great facility. We've got a 150 years of roots in our local community. And we've got a young generation of players that we are, the plan is that we take that group and further investment and make them into contenders as we were not so long ago. So yeah, I still wake up every morning with excitement about what the future holds for the club.
That's really good. It is good to remember that we're in a pretty good place. Like I said, Ospreys are talking about building a stadium that's pretty much been ours for the last 10 years. We've had it there, so it is good to remember sometimes some of these. So I'm gonna take umbrage with Hugh suggesting that my questions now are not serious, because this
I can't wait for these.
Yeah. So as well as the important questions, we have some really, really important questions, and the first one comes from me. So who cuts Steph Evans's hair, and how many times has he been fined for walking around with a haircut like what he's got at the minute?
Well, take a look around the screen and answer me this. Which one of us thinks we are qualified to comment on anybody else's hair? I'm sure not, so I'm not commenting on Steph's. Steph's had some pretty cracking mullets in his time, but I think he actually looks quite smart, quite respectable now.
It's one of those topics that comes up every week, is Steph Evans' hair. So yeah, fantastic.
It's a lead fetish more than anything.
That's the one thing I'm taking from this interview is, what was Jon Daniels like? Well, he backed Steph Evans' haircut. So.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I get blamed for plenty of things, so we may as well add that.
Okay, so next question then. Within the URC, who does the best pies? Who's got the best food in away ground games?
What? So our pies don't count?
No, because we have to accept that we just do the best pies in the West. So we've got to think, right, okay, who comes close to us?
So, it's all the ones that also buy from Castell.
and diplomatic. Okay, so within the squad at the minute, then, who's the biggest pretty boy? Who's the one that's with his hair and with the making sure he's got the suntan on and all of that kind of stuff?
Do people really want to know?
Yeah, they do.
Everyone has got the. I'll be honest. Tom Rogers comes up as the pretty boy quite a lot. So he's the fans' favourite as the pretty boy. Is there any justification in calling him the pretty boy of the team?
I'm sure Tom would be happy with that. He may have started that rumour, actually.
Why is he wearing a scrum cap at the moment? Is it because he's done his hair?
I couldn't tell you. But genuinely, it's not a thought that's crossed my mind. As long as they keep coming in and busting a gut to improve and get the results we want, they can be pretty boys, they can be ugly boys, they can be what they want. They're a good bunch of boys, right? They work hard, they have a good laugh. There's plenty of good banter in the room. Obviously, there's probably even more banter when I'm not around, with me being the butt of half of it. But they're a good bunch, and it does hurt seeing them hurt. Coming in and working hard and trying to turn it around and not quite getting there at times, but they'll come good. So if they turn it around, I'll buy them all as much hair product and makeup as they can promise them that.
Cool. Okay, so last question then, and this is one from us. Who's most likely to come on the pod out of Ken or Foxy, and can you make that happen?
Well, obviously you can't afford those two, so that's what you've got me.
We'll leave that one there then. So, Jon, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's refreshing to have someone from the club come and talk to fans and be honest and open, and I'm sure it's the start of a new era in the club of how we go forward, a more realistic era. And we wish you all the best for the season. Thank you very much for tonight. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the season, mate. All the best.
Can I just say one thing, please, Lee?
Of course you can.
Obviously, there's a lot of emotion around with some supporters at the moment, and I get it. You know, there's only one thing worse than that is apathy. So I get that, but I do also just want to thank those fans that are taking the time, because they're hurting and they're not happy with the results either. But I do want to thank those fans that do actually reach out and just say, you know, we can see what you're trying to do. Stick with it. We're with you for the long term. The good times will be back, and when they do, we'll enjoy it. So I do just want to tip my hat to that group as well and thank everybody for support.
Fantastic. Great message to finish on. Thank you for your time, Jon. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jon. Bye.
So that was really good. I got to say again, thank you to Jon, because you know he didn't have to come on the pod. It would have been really easy to sit there and read what's being said on social media. To actually front up and come and have a conversation, I thought was really good, and he was really honest, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, obviously there's a lot of things that he's bound to. He can't exactly speak about. He doesn't have permission to it. So everything that he is able to speak about, fair play, he did, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And the process from our point of view, obviously we got all the questions from people that people submitted, and some of them we obviously just couldn't ask. Some of them were, shall we say, not in good faith. And then, you know, and there was a lot of people asked very, very similar questions. So like about player recruitment and pathways, I think were the two main subjects that came up. So we kind of feel like we covered those in depth. But yeah, fair play to Jon. Obviously, you know, like he said himself, when things aren't going well, it's the easiest thing to do is hide. And no, he's come out and said, no, it's important to not be like that. So fair play to him, and long may it continue, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still shocked about Steph Evans is here though. Anyway, let's crack on with the community game, Mark, because there was some really, really big games last week. So why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown on your community game? And can we say, before Martin starts on his community game, nobody has touched Martin's spreadsheet this week. I've not even looked at it this week. I checked the scores on Saturday night. I've not even looked at your spreadsheet.
I'll make a special point never to look at Martin's spreadsheet,
so
just for him.
If you fuck this up, Martin, it's all on you, right?
Well, to be fair, if I have dodgy this one up, it is on me, because I've taken to the old style of hardback and pen. So it's all written down in front of me. No one else can access it.
You didn't even trust it to put it on the spreadsheet. You just so the 1 week that we don't even look at your spreadsheet, you write it down. It's not even on the spreadsheet.
Hardback and pen is what Stephen says to the hairdresser when he sits down.
Let's just crack on with the community update, shall we?
Oh, it's been long already, Christ. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look top to bottom as we do it. Premiership. We'll start with a Quins away trip to Newport. The Scarlets boys on show. We had Sam O'Connor and Iestyn William in the starting 15 and Iestyn Wood in the 23. This was a Quins side without Charlie Titcombe, so I think we can all know where the result is heading. But fair play, Newport are a playoff team, and it was only 5-0 at half time. So the Quins dug in and got a good performance in the first half. Kind of fell away in the second, going down 36-5 at the end. Iestyn William with the try. So a bit unlucky for the Quins, but we know they need Titcombe in the side.
No Charlie, no party. I don't think I'm the first person to say that.
Okay, on to the Drovers now. Then they had the long trip up north, and they are Scarlet boys. They had Cian Abraham in the starting 15 and Jack Davis on the bench. They just run out and done everything in the first half, 33-7 up. There's no way for RGC to come back. They did fight. They did give a good fight in the second half, but 40-21 winners to the Drovers in the end, and Cian Abraham got a try. Fixtures for this week, there's obviously the break with the Six Nations. There's one rearranged fixture which is coming Thursday night, which is a big one. Llandovery are travelling to Cardiff. So if you can get there, because it promises to be epic. And if
I would
not,
love it if we beat them.
Yeah.
You had to say it just like that. And if you can't get there, I'm pretty sure it's going to be live on S4X, so that's going to be another one.
So what are we saying then, Mark? That was that Llandovery win at the weekend big enough? I know you don't like it when they only score a couple. You need them to be trouncing.
Yeah, they're getting there. You know, obviously I think they were really focused on that Ebbw Vale game last week. That block of games really focused on it. I think they were a bit too uptight. But obviously now that game's over, they sort of sprung free a bit and started scoring a few more tries. So it's good to see them again now. I say see them again. They've only lost the one game all season. That's a bit harsh to be saying. So
but isn't this Cardiff game will be the repeat of last year's final, won't it?
Yeah, they've already played once, and again it was a Thursday night game which Llandovery won. But this is a carbon copy of last season's final.
Yeah, thought it was. Yeah, up the Drovers. Nice one. Go on in.
Championship Cup, rearranged fixture from last weekend. Llangennech travelled to Bargoed. All things were looking good going into half-time. Llangennech leading 9-7. And it just wasn't to be, unfortunately. They eventually went down 23-16. So, you know, unlucky to the boys in Llangennech. And, you know, they're still in the fight for the league. So they can focus on that now, full attention, and see where they go. Into the league now, Championship West, and it wasn't a big one, but it was a big one. It was Crymych at home to Ammanford, and a Championship West game where one side starts with only 14 players. So it was quite odd that Crymych played with 14 players from the start.
What, no subs and no nothing?
No, nothing. And what makes it worse is Iestyn Wood, who played for the Quins, is a Crymych boy. He was on permit.
Yeah. I was going to say he was.
I don't know exactly what happened there, but it is res. And you know they had a couple of yellow cards, so they were down to 12 men at one point. They still fought at it. You know they were leading 7-6 at half time, but you know when they went down to 12 and 13 men, you know Ammanford actually pulled it out of the bag and they won 25-24. So still a hell of a performance by Crymych. But, you know, great for Ammanford to pick up the win. They had a debutant from the Scarlets Academy, Ollie Cloth. He is a second row, so good to see another second row playing in the Championship or Premiership. So that's brilliant for us. And if you go on their socials, they give him a little bit of a pusher's treatment for his first game. The other one was the big one, the one we've been waiting all season. That was postponed first time around, Narberth against Brecon. And by all accounts, Brecon thought they had this in the bag. They were leading 15-6 at half-time. And I don't know what was said, but I really wish I was there to hear it. It was a second-half shutout from Narberth, 19-15 win in the end. This is Narberth's league. I can't see anyone even coming close to them now. Brecon was the only team. They might do them on their home patch, but if this league was going to be open to anyone other than Narberth, Brecon had to beat them here, and it just didn't happen. No fixtures, no rearranged fixtures.
Because I want to just say with Narberth, so we said last week that if anyone from Narberth was listening, then, you know, let us know and all that kind of stuff, because I'd really like to interview. And then someone from Narberth got in touch, the head coach got in touch, and he went, yeah, come and have a chat. And I said last week on the pod, I said, I can't do it on a Thursday night because I've got parents' evening. So I thought, okay, 8:30, yeah. He said, come and have a chat after training. Boys will be in the clubhouse, have a chat to some of the boys. And I thought, yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. So 7:30, I think. What time did I message you, Hugh? I was still in it was about there Monday. It was about 7:30, and I'm still.
I was cooking at the time, so it must have been in the 6s.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've still got maths and history to go, or Spanish.
My two favourite subjects.
I was like, I'm not going to make it. So I was gutted. So my apologies to the boys at Narberth, but I will catch up another time, and I will I will make the effort to come to the clubhouse because, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good end of season for Narberth this year. So, sorry, Matt, I interrupted you. You carry on, mate.
It's fine. You have to be put out there. Lee let the team down. We all know it. So, no fixtures over the next fortnight. Now with the Six Nations in Championship West, the next games will be in the following week, which is the 17th of February, and we'll keep you up to date with them. We go down into Division 1 West now. Barryport winning 29-23 away to Aberystwyth. Kidwelly with a 43-26 win at home to Wellingborough. Llanelli Wanderers 50-11 over Pontarddulais. And Whitland falling short again, 22-21 loss at home to Hendy. Whitland, I think something's happened. I think a switch has been turned somewhere because these results are getting closer and closer. So we go on to this week now, and there are two games. They are both on Friday evening, the 2nd. So it's Kidwelly at home to Pencloud, and Whitland are hosting Aberystwyth. Down into 1 West Central now, our only team, Bryn Aman. They hosted Morriston, but unfortunately lost 24-13. Their next game, 17th Feb. Division 2 West now. We had a 2nd v 3rd game in Locha v Lampeter, and it played out as we imagined. Ended up 24-22 in Locha's favour. So, you know, unlucky for the boys in Lampeter. They're still up there. There's still a lot of rugby to play, despite it being Six Nations time. Nancaredig won 23-20 away to Mumbles. Pontarberry picking up another win at home against Aman United, 33-7. Milford almost pulled off the trifecta. They almost picked off a win against all of the top 3, losing 8-6 away to St. Clair's. So,
and the weird bit with this, if you remember last season, Milford were really struggling, and then they nick a game in like the last kick of the game and all of that. And I think they won 3 games last season, and 2 of them were literally last kick of the game. So St. Clair's won that game. It was 6-5 to Milford, and St. Clair's won it with the last kick of the game on a penalty. So, you know, fair play to Milford to come from where they were to that, and they're on a really strong run at the minute. So, yeah, doing well.
Yeah, this Milford side can do great things, and a bit of consistency would go a long way. So I expecting big things next season now. As long as they can keep their core boys, I think it's going to be a tasty season for them. Tenby bounced back straight onto the winning horse, winning 23-17 at home to Carmarthen Athletic. Fishguard went the other way. They lost 27-13 away to Christ, so they couldn't quite back up, you know, beating the infallible Tenby. But there we go. One game this week to talk about. We got Aman United hosting Carmarthen Athletic. Aman United still looking for that first league win. We go into 3 West A now. Aberaeron winning 41-0 at home to Llanybydr. Cardigan and Larne playing out a 15-all draw. Small dent in Larne's title hopes, maybe. But we'll see how it goes. Langham losing 15-41 away at home to Aberystwyth. Sorry. Neyland winning 27-17 at home to Pembroke. And Pembroke Dock Harlequins winning 23-17 at home to St. David's. One game this week. Finally, a game on Saturday. Larne are at home to St. David's. Down into 3 West B. Betos? I put the wrong team there. Binya.
Hang on. So, whose fault is that then that you got the wrong team this week?
There are 2 5-letter teams starting with B in 3
Don't
West.
give me that shit.
So
You
it's
got
an
it
honest
wrong.
mistake. I'm assuming it's Binya because I'm not looking online on my spread because I know you've played with it. So Binya went down 32-6 at home to Furness. Llandilo won 25-10 away to Llandibby. You are a happy man this week. New Dock Stars have got back on the winner's horse.
About bloody time.
89-14 at home to Tregaron.
Bare minimum.
That's what we like to hear. Trimsaran edged out a tight game, 29-27 at home to Llangadog. And in the top end of the table, first v second, Tumbo played host to Betos. And quite frankly, Betos didn't care about being away from home. They just rocked up on 130, 1-5. Not even a bother for them. So that makes this league a lot more open now. It's just going to be fun to see how it plays out. No games for the next fortnight. So February the 17th for 3 West B. Our last league is 5 West Central. Only one game to bring you. Pontiacs with a big 46-6 win at home to Fall Bay. So good to see Pontiacs getting another win on the board. You know, it's not as though I predicted them to win the league this season or nothing. This Saturday, one game, Pennybank are at home to Conquer. That's it for the community.
Cool.
So, did any of you manage to watch any of the 18s games this week?
I watched some of the Dragons game.
Was it Dragons?
Yeah, on Wednesday night. Quite frankly.
Oh, Cardiff the week before, wasn't it?
Hmm.
On track. Yeah, I watched the Wednesday night game.
But no, this boys 18s, there's something special going on. So Wednesday night, it was a 64-7 win at home to the Dragons. We got try scorers, Yori Badham, Ellis Price. Ellis Price is the younger brother of Jack Price. So if you see the name, we know there's a connection there. Ian Sparrow with a double and a little bit extra on him in a minute. Griff Watkins got a try. Dom Kossoff with a monumental 65-centimetre run. Bowen Clark, Sean Jones and Lewis Jones rounded off the tries. Stephen Jack Jones got 3 conversions and a penalty, and Carwyn Leggett Jones got 4 conversions. And Ian Sparrow also got a conversion, along with his man of the match performance. So
another man of the match performance.
Lee, you spoke about this boy last season.
And then he got a caution off the referee for taking the piss.
No.
I mean, yeah, we spoke about him last year, and he was like a stick last year, but he managed to get himself everywhere. He's got an engine on him that I haven't seen in an open side for a long time. You expect open sides to have an engine. Yeah, you expect them to be everywhere. They're the psychos in the team that just don't know when to stop. But he just takes it to another level. He's got an intelligence about him. He reminds me a lot of if Justin Tipperick had a baby with Cubby, they'd produce a Sparrow. That's what it would be. So
A Tipperick and a Cubby make a Sparrow. That's a good saying, that is.
That's what it is, mate. He is
a sparrow in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
At the minute, I haven't seen a weak part to his game. I was going to say last week, the only weak part he's got is his kicking, and then he goes and takes a conversion and clears from hand. So
he heard you. Insert and I took that personally meme here.
Yeah, and there you go. So yeah, fair play to him. It's so I think we should clear up at this point the tweet that we put out about, and we all take responsibility for this, even though it was Hugh that did it. So so the next game, the RGC game, and so we gave RGC a bit of a tonking as well, and a bit of fun. Let's go back to last year, where our under-18s, and I saw last year's under-18s play. I've seen this year's under-18s play. Last year's under-18s, man for man on paper, were better than this year's under-18s. Yeah, there's a lot of this year's under-18s. Yeah, but no, on paper and man for man, yeah, this year's team plays together and plays, they pull for each other. They
look like they've been playing with each other for about 5 years.
Yeah, it's a very, very well drilled together team. If they could tighten up a little bit of their defense, that would be great. But yeah, so anyway, after the RGC game, that Martin will give us a score of it in a minute. It was a bit of a kick in, and we put out a little bit of a joke that just said, somebody give us a game. It wasn't meant as, everyone else is shit and we're arrogant and all that kind of stuff. It was a bit of fun. Last year, everybody was slated our under-18s because they were the alleged golden boys and all of this kind of stuff, and you couldn't win a fucking raffle and all of this kind of stuff. Those were the tweets that were coming our way from, you know, Ospreys and Cardiff last year and all of this kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of fun. Have a bit of sense of humour about it. You know, let's just
It
put
came
that one to bed.
completely from a place of giddy excitement about how good the under-18s are, and nothing other than that.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
moving on.
What was
Moving
the
on.
actual score, Matt? What was the score of the RGC game?
The final score, it
Yeah.
was 41-6, but put that in a bit of context. RGC were leading 3-0 at halftime, and they actually went 6-0 up before we decided to put the afterburners on. So that was played out on the training pitch at Park Scarlets. Try scorers for this one were Tyler Davis got a double, Bowen Clark with another scrum half sniper, 2 in a row for him. Ellis Payne, Johan Thomas, and Harry Gwyn Jones. Ellis Payne scored a conversion, and Carwyn Lega-Jones got 3 conversions and a penalty, which all combined to give that a nice 41-6 score. So they don't have a game this week now. This RGC game normally would have been a Wednesday because they're North Walians, the game's on the Sunday. So no game for them now till the 7th of February. Over to the girls' 18s now, and the penultimate game was against Cardiff. Weren't able to back up the big win over RGCD, and they unfortunately went down 24-5 against Cardiff. Bowie Wilkins is the only scorer in this game. Last round will be played on Sunday the 4th, and they're up against the Ospreys, and I believe it's the Scarlets region turn to host the games. So still waiting for confirmation for where they will be played out.
Well, fingers crossed they can put them on the park, you know, because it would be lovely for those girls to be able to run out of the tunnel, you know, at the park, and there'd be a fair decent crowd there as well.
Yeah.
You know, if we want to really encourage these girls to, like I say, feel a part of the Scarlets, and if we're committing to, you know, let's develop a women's side for the future, then this is where that women's side is going to come from. So let's give them something to remember, isn't it? It'd be good.
Yeah, so this, you know, if we do it for the boys, we should be doing it for the girls. And it's exactly the same as I put out a tweet to S-Pedwarek. Any chance we can show the girls 18s? Because you love showing the boys. Let's see the girls play as well. And, you know, all the girls, all 6 teams, because there's 2 from RGC that come down, they play on the same pitch on the same day. So you get 6 teams worth of fans coming in. So there's no reason why we can't host at the park. Because if we do it for 2 under-18s boys teams, why can't we do it for 6 under-18s girls?
Yeah, even, you know, at this time of year, there's no college rugby. So surely, you know, we can put our highlights together for the girls' game, can't we? Got to be able to.
I mean, there must be a camera there anyway, so.
Yeah, they do normally show the tries, but that's about it.
Yeah, we need the extended highlights at worst. But like you say, when you've got, you know, when you've
10, 15 minutes worth, yeah.
Yeah, but when you've got 3 games back to back, you know, it's worth sending a proper camera down there and somebody that can commentate. I would do it if it was in English, but my Welsh is atrocious, so you know, I can't volunteer. But I do know some people that would. If S4C fancy doing it, I will get you a commentator. I have got 2 boys that will absolutely commentate on that. They do our Welsh rugby, Welsh language pod, and they would both be bang up for that. Drop us a line, because apparently that's how you get stuff done now. You ask people to drop you a line on the pod, and halfway through the week, they get in touch. So yeah, S4C, if you're listening, we've got a couple of boys that would love to do the commentary on the girls thing down at the park. Get in touch. Anyway, crack on.
Well, that's it for the rag. We're still the 16s. I believe they've got a festival on the 4th down Llanrumney, and that's really going to kick off their playing season. So, but outside of that, that's all the community, that's all the academy stuff done. What I will mention is when we do come back with a full round of community games on the 17th, we've got some youth cup games to talk about as well.
Oh, Christ alive. Get
How can
your
that still be
warm
going?
stuff
Surely there's only... Have they started?
No, we're semi-final stage now with the Youth Cup, aren't we?
No, with the youth, it's quarter-final stage now. It's been a big gap between the last round, and it's taken a while. You know, winter rugby, it takes ages to get these cup games played.
About I can see the local pitch up my back, and after the Sunday game. So the youth played on there on the Saturday, and then Sunday game, there must have been 4, 5 games on there on Sunday, and you look at it this morning and you go, holy shit, it looks like something from a World War One movie, like, you know. It's yeah, takes a pounding. Right, so when we do next week, so when we'll have a chat next week, because obviously there's no Scarlets to talk about, there's no community game to talk about. So when we do the community section next week, we'll run down the tables. That's what we'll do next week. I said we'd do that a couple of times and I haven't got around to it. Somebody remind me next week to do the tables, because yeah.
How many tables are we going to do? Are we going to do a couple a week, or are we going to go through them all?
No, we may as well go through them all. Let's just go through them all next week. That'll be our section next week. So someone talked to me about Thunder. So I've been saying Brython wrong. I've been saying Brython. It should be Brython, is it?
I thought it was Bryden, as in Rob Brydon, but I have been informed that it is Brython. I just call them the Thunder, but Mark doesn't like that. If I call them Thunder, Mark's like, it's not the Thunder, it's Brython.
It's Brython. Yeah, Thunder's a nickname.
And the emoji, by the way, for them, if you want to tweet about them, is hammers. Okay, like Thor, not a lightning, because there's another team called Lightning, and we're not them.
We're not them. Yeah. Okay, so how did they get on?
Christ.
Can we talk more about the emoji?
We didn't. Let's be fair. We didn't get to see as much of the game as we wanted to. I didn't see any of their game against. It was the Wolfhounds, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. No. I like I've said a few times already. I've got a couple of young daughters who do love rugby, and I tend to watch the games with them. And unfortunately, this one was on at 7:30 at night, so I think we only got about 20-25 minutes to the game before bedtime comes in, and by the time I thought the game was over. But to be clear, Wolfhounds are undefeated going into this game. They've had 2 bonus point wins in that, so they're only 1 bonus point off maximum. Brython, we are yet to really hit our stride. We almost done it against was it Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it looked really good against Edinburgh. Edinburgh are a top team as well.
Yeah, but it was essentially it was in a 16 league. It was 5th against undefeated top. Went down 41-10 in the end. So not exactly surprise, but it's a hard learning curve. These girls are together for the first time because we don't exactly have a good stable of Welsh women's rugby below this, whereas you go into Ireland and you've got the All Ireland League. So the girls in Ireland have got regular rugby going through it, where we haven't quite got that system here yet. So it's kind of understandable that we're not exactly with Gwalior either. We're not exactly competing in that first and second place.
But it's coming. It will come. It will come. There's more and more girls playing every week because they can see that at the top there. And 5 years ago, I tried. No, it was more than 5 years ago. It was about 7 or 8 years ago when they started girls' hubs, and I was part of that in Pembrokeshire. So I was. People looked at me weird. I was very committed to women's rugby, and they said, "Oh, where's your daughter?" And I was, "Oh, yeah, no, my daughter doesn't like playing. I just believe in equality and women's rugby." And we had one hub in the whole of Pembrokeshire, and there was 1 women's team in Pembrokeshire at that point. And we've now got 2 hubs in Pembrokeshire, and we've got 1, 2, 3.5 women's teams, senior women's teams, and that half will be a full team by the end of this year. And I know a couple of other teams are looking at, well, why can't we set up a women's team? So let's keep it real. We started from nothing not very long ago, and we're at the point of playing semi-professional women's rugby and giving our girls something to aim for.
Yeah, it's great to hear Jon Daniels talk about how supportive the Scarlets intend to continue to be for that as well. Like his words were, as soon as an opportunity comes to put out a professional women's team, we will be doing that, which is good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if we talk about the women's teams that are out there right now, in Carmarthenshire, you've got the Valley Vixens, Merched Mynydd Mawr, Straddy Saucepans, Carmarthen Rebels. You've then got the Taff Valley Tigers, who are in Whitland. So it kind of bordering. They cover both, Carmarthenshire and Pembroke. Into Pembroke, the two sides, like I said. Is it Cleddau Wildcats? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Cleddau Wildcats. They were my girls. Yeah.
And then we've got the South Pemb Sharks. And then we go into Ceredigion now. You got Wibrod, which are Newcastle Emlyn based, and you've got Bay Ceredigion. So nine halves in the whole of Dyfed, essentially.
The Wildcats had, I reckon, we had the coolest kit design to start with. Yeah, because when we set that kit design up, and we had a whole meeting with it, it took absolutely ages, because it was like, well, we can't have a particular club's colours. We can't have blue, can't have black, we can't have red, can't have red and white, we can't have red and black, we can't have blue and black. But it was right, what do we do? So we landed on orange. Yeah, so we're gonna have so it really stood out. It was like, oh, holy cow, yeah, that's the Wildcats kit, bright orange. But then it had a cat's claw marks all the way, so it was almost like a stripe, but it was like done as a claw mark, and then the claw was down the bottom. It was awesome. It was the best, and I'm looking at it, I was going like, that's really good. I really like that kit. I might dig out my old coach's top and I'll show you next week. I think it's in for clothes recycling at the minute, but I might show you my old Cleddau Wildcats top. It was really good, really good. But,
well, on the topic of tops, do you want to show us what you're wearing this week, Lee?
Well, I have shown this before. I just wanted to wear it because Jon Daniels did it. So this is part of what I've been working on. So you heard me talk about the shop for a while, and so basically this was something I put in there, and then it got taken down because it's got like all of the official club ones. So I've had to kind of adapt the official club logos, and then I've adapted this and all that kind of stuff. So at some point the wrap shop will be back up, and there'll be Scarlets Fever shirts and hats and all of this kind of stuff, and there'll be Ospreys ones, but there'll be Dragons ones, and then there'll be Cardiff ones. So they'll all be there. They'll be really.
What about Blues?
Yeah, Blues ones can have their own bus. They'll be really good. I'll be delighted.
Did the mixed ability team have a big match lately?
So yeah, they played Pembrokeshire. They were playing the Vikings, didn't they? They had to move the game.
They did. It was in the People's Park.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the tweets now.
Yeah. Did Gwilym message us with the
They tagged us in some. Oh, not with the final score. I'm looking now.
Yeah, because they've gone absolutely insane this season. The amount of recognition that they've had this year has been fantastic, and our original interview with him is still on there, and somebody shared that again the other day, and it just started going nuts again. So it was really good. But
I've got it.
Go on in. What was the score?
Against Pembrokeshire, it was Warriors 19, Pembrokeshire 5.
Oh, we'll have to get Simon Gardner on. I have asked Simon Gardner to come on a couple of times, but Simon, apparently this is how we get people on the pod now. Simon, if you're listening, give us a shout. Come on you come. Yeah, that'd be really cool. So right, we've got two things left to do. Right. So I promised you boys last week some jokes from my joke book, but then we've also got Wales predictions to do. So I think we do Wales predictions and then
roll them into one.
You've been listening to rap, haven't you? And then we'll finish on a real high with two absolute classic jokes from my new Christmas joke book. Okay, so Wales predictions. Hugh, off you go with what you're expecting, who you're expecting, and a score prediction.
Well, I'd for starters, the team should be Matthias, Elias, and then we need to have They call Josh McLeod in, even if he's injured, and then Gareth Davis, Sam Costello, Joe Roberts, Tom Rogers. Who am I forgetting? All 8, but all 8 need to be in there. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Tom's injured, isn't he? I think Tom's injured.
Details.
Someone's messed with his hair. That's what it is.
Someone's stolen his scrum cap.
Yeah.
What am I expecting? I don't think I've ever watched Wales lose at home to Scotland.
Right.
Technically, we lost at Parker Scarlets in the back end.
That doesn't count. Was anybody there? You find me someone who was there, and then I'll believe you.
Anyway, what kind of game are you expecting?
I've got no idea. I think I'd like to see us continue what we kind of worked at the World Cup. I think the team will be similar to the team that we put out against South Africa in the final warm-up game, but with a couple more big guns in there. I think it will be a backs against the wall job, because I think Scotland will be on the front foot because they're a much more settled team with a lot more experience than us. But I can't be picking Wales to lose it, so I won't be. I look forward to seeing the Scarlets boys in action. We obviously expect Gareth Davis and Sam Costello to be in the team, and Ryan Elias as well. So I'm expecting at least 3 Scarlets in there. So yeah, and it's an exciting new journey for Wales. I just want people, and Steph Thomas wrote about this as well. Well, put out something about this today as well. Patience with this new Wales team, because it's not going to be hit the ground running, I don't think. So it needs to be understanding and looking for the positives, like we always do on this podcast.
Okay. And a score?
20-19 to Wales.
Okay. I'm not going to write it down because I forget to tweet it out anyway, and I'm not going to do anything with it, but it's good to know. 22-19 to us. Martin, your thoughts on the Wales game?
Yeah, I think my biggest disappointment that's come out in the last few weeks is Gatland saying he expects George North to make the 27 World Cup. So, I mean, he has been improving as a 13 when he's been playing consistently as a 13. He's not exactly the finished article there. And, his age obviously plays against him. I really do want to see Joe Roberts given a good run in the shirt. But I just don't think that's going to happen this time round. 100% agree with her. I think Gareth Davis and Sam Costello have got to be the starting halfbacks, just for they probably are the 2 best 9 and 10 in Wales, and having that club connection as well always helps. Who loves his connections.
I'm thinking of a new graphic I'm going to do for France. I haven't quite sussed it out yet. Gareth Davis, most try involvements of any Welsh scrum half so far this season in the USC.
Yeah. No surprises there. He's always there every single time without fail. But no, I'd like to see Matthias get a nod. I don't think he will, which is unfortunate, because of the players that we've selected, only Gareth Thomas is above him, in my perspective now. And realistically, he's not going to be around forever either. So we do need to start blooding Matthias, because I don't think Don Mikowski is going to pave out as a world-class loose head. Whereas I think Matthias has got that ceiling. Whether or not he makes it is another question entirely. On to score, for some reason you always ask who first, so it makes me change my predictions. I was going to say 23-17 to start, and then he goes with 22-19, so I'm like, that's way too close. I got to change it now. So 31-24. Wales.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I see the reckoning in that. Well, yeah, I hope he does play Joe Roberts, and I've said for a long time, I think if George North is going to switch positions, I think inside centre is probably where he'd be better off rather than outside. He'd be less exposed in defence, and when you're inside centre, the ability to push out is a lot easier, you know, and he's not a small chap. He'll cope with a couple of big hefty boys coming at him, and he's gonna have that crossbow king kind of thing going on there. So if he is going to play, that's where I would play him, and I would love to see Joe Roberts at 13. Yeah, kind of game. I think Wales are going to try and play an open game. I think there'll be cheeky lineouts. I think there'll be tap and go on penalties where Scotland aren't expecting it. I think there'll be penalty moves inside the 22 and all of this kind of thing. I think we're going to try and break that game up. That Scotland do like they like to throw the ball around, but they do it off a very strong upfront kind of performance. And if we can break up their pack and start moving their pack around and start confusing their pack, I think that's where the ability will lie.
Javin in for Scotland, by the way, just to throw that in.
Yeah, I was about to say it's good to see friend of the pod, Javin Sebastian, sort his maybe this way he didn't get the call first time because his signal was so poor the first time.
He didn't answer.
Well, Greg is there like, Javin, are you there, Javin?
Yeah, well, if you're not going to pick up the phone...
I'm going to have to pick WP now.
Yeah. But no, fair play to the boy. You know, well done. He's made the Scottish squad. So, yeah, fingers crossed for him as well. Score prediction, I think it'd be quite an open game. But I think it'd be like 33-32 to Wales. It'll be something like that. It'll be a ridiculous game. And you'll get to the end of it and we'll go, wow, why can't every Six Nations game be like this? This is amazing. This is awesome. So, yeah, that is my prediction for that. And just to say, so we're recording the wrap podcast later this week. We're recording it on Thursday night after the team has been announced. So keep your eyes and ears peeled on Friday morning because we will be publishing our reactions, expectations, and all of that kind of stuff to the game then. Okay. So big build up now. Big build up. Okay. So I've been through the book. I've been through about 3 months where there's like a joke a day. Yeah. So I'm up to the end of March. I found 2 jokes that actually made me laugh. Right. So and I'm crap at telling jokes because I laugh halfway through because I know what's coming. So my first one, yeah, is what is red and bad for your teeth? A brick. See, you're trying not to laugh, Martin, but I can see that inside there's a giggle.
6. I'll give that a 6. That's a like that is.
And then my favourite one is, would you like to hear a long joke? So just say yes, but would you like to hear a long joke? On that note, boys, I shall bid you farewell. Enjoy your rugby. We'll catch up and do it again next week. All the best.
Bye-bye.